Speaking of which, here's a multilateral bloc that refuses to fade away. BRICS. It is made up of the 5 largest developing economies in the world: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. BRICS. This bloc has been written off so many times. When Brazil's economy collapsed, when Russia annexed Crimea, when India and China clashed in Galwan, every time people wrote an obituary for BRICS, but it keeps coming back. Today, the heads of state held a virtual meeting. All 5 leaders were in attendance. Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, President Vladimir Putin of Russia, President Xi Jinping of China, President Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil, and President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa. Putin and Xi would have been looking forward to this meeting. For Putin, it's a comeback on the world stage, his first major summit after the invasion of Ukraine. For Xi, it's another forum to target the West, a chance to unite the developing world and challenge the US. But what about India? Prime Minister Narendra Modi focused on the shared interests. He talked about economic cooperation and post-pandemic recovery.
वैश्विक अर्थव्यवस्था की गवर्नेंस के बारे में हम ब्रिक्स सदस्य देशों का नजरिया काफी समान रहा है और इसलिए हमारा आपसी सहयोग वैश्विक पोस्ट कोविड रिकवरी में उपयोगी योगदान दे सकता है। पिछले वर्षों में हमने ब्रिक्स में कई संस्थागत सुधार किए हैं, जिनसे इस संगठन की प्रभावशीलता बढ़ी है।
Do you see the different expectations? For China and Russia, the BRICS is political. For India, it is financial. Putin has no option but to depend on the BRICS. And these numbers should tell you why. China is buying 55% more Russian oil after the invasion. India is purchasing 25 times more. The BRICS is Putin's best bet against Western sanctions. The only forum where he's not a pariah.
It is important that despite all the problems and difficulties, the BRICS business circles are consistently expanding mutually beneficial ties in trade, financial and investment areas. Thus, the trade turnover of the Russian Federation with the countries of the 5 in the first 3 months of this year increased by 38%, up to $45 billion.
Both Putin and Xi criticized the West. The Chinese president accused the US of abusing international sanctions. He called for the emerging world to unite against the West. Listen to this.
We must abandon Cold War mentality and bloc confrontation and oppose unilateral sanctions and the abuse of sanctions. And it's important for the world to recognize that forging a community with a shared future, like a big family, is so much better than building exclusive circles that practice hegemony.
Now, how much of this will make it to the joint statement? That is a big question, because Russia and China may criticize the US, but India does not share that criticism. Reports say India will resist any anti-US campaign within the BRICS. And frankly, it's not a surprise. India's position is that of strategic autonomy. Neither the West nor Russia. At the Quad, India resisted anti-Russia moves. At the BRICS, India may resist anti-US moves. But where does that leave the grouping? In a lot of uncertainty. There is very little in common between these 5 countries. Their people are different, their economies are different. In fact, the BRICS has been bunched under a very arbitrary tag: developing countries. Does Russia really fit in that description? Or modern-day China? The fact is, the BRICS was seduced by its own scope. They make up 41% of the global population, 24% of the world GDP, 16% of global trade. Impressive numbers, but do numbers really make effective blocs? Compare that to the G7 or even the Quad. They're much more relevant because there is political alignment. There is a common vision. The BRICS does not have something similar. India expected it to be the voice of the developing world, but clearly that's not happening. Putin sees the BRICS as a lucrative market. China sees it as another anti-US forum, which is why they want to expand it. China is the chair, the BRICS chair for 2022. They have announced plans to admit like-minded partners into this grouping, and they have the clout to do so. China makes up 70% of the BRICS' total GDP. The question is, how do they keep India interested? If India does not go all along, BRICS loses all relevance. So Beijing is trying very hard to woo India. On Wednesday, Foreign Minister Wang Yi met India's ambassador to China. Let me tell you what he told the Indian envoy, and I'm quoting. This is the Chinese leader. China and India should support rather than undermine each other, strengthen cooperation rather than guard against each other, and enhance mutual trust rather than be suspicious of each other. Wang Yi says the common interests outweigh the differences. And this is not the first time. In March this year, Wang Yi visited India. He tried to push New Delhi beyond the border row in Ladakh. So clearly China wants cooperation, but India must respond with caution, because this outreach is not about building ties with India, it's about achieving China's own goals. And in that context, Prime Minister Modi's BRICS address makes perfect sense. Vaccines, economy, climate change, yoga. Not a single word about political commitments. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.